Start with the team views. How are the boys shaping up going to Leeds?
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, got a longer turnaround, which has been great. We've had some short turnarounds. Since Wembley, a couple of 6 days there, and we got to an 8 dayer in this time around. So it's been good for guys to recover. We're hopeful of getting a couple back, but we'll know more later on in the week.
No injuries coming off the back of that golf day. No tweak backs.
No, probably some bruised egos. That's about it.
How's Batch doing with his throat?
Yeah, not too bad. He won't play this week, so slowly getting there, getting his voice back, which is good. So it's just one of those that we'll just take our time with and just make sure he's okay before he returns.
How close are Jared and Mickey Mapp to a return?
So yeah, both will be named, and then they're just going to both go through fitness testing and all that sort of thing to get through the week, and then we'll make a call whether it's going to be this week or whether they play next week.
And Joe Burgess, Rhyse Martin both making their return on Friday. They both come through it all right?
Yeah, both are fine.
I know when we spoke about Rhyse last week and what his return would look like and how many minutes he'd be playing, it would be based on his data and his metrics. What will the next few weeks look like for him?
Well, now it's pretty much how he handles game intensity. So if he's out there and we see him moving well and he's in the game, then he can potentially go 80 minutes and play the whole game. If we don't think he's doing his job the best he can because of fatigue and that type of thing, then we'll look to bring him off. But it's one of those now where I'd like to see him be able to increase the minutes and increase what he does for longer periods. It's a long time that he had off, so movements and that type of thing he would have felt different for him. Even though he's done a lot away from on his own type thing, and his return to play has been in depth, but nothing beats a game, and nothing beats what the chaos of a game brings. So that's what he's got to keep getting through, and he did that last week, but he needed some time off, and we wanted to manage that properly. But this is probably a week and the next week where we could say, okay, let's go longer.
Yeah, I think when we spoke to him after the match, he was very much looking forward to a good night's sleep. Uribe Doro on a 2-week loan to Bradford. Is that just a case of trying to get him as many minutes as possible over the next fortnight?
Yeah, the players want to play, and unfortunately for Uribe, he hasn't. He's 18th man. He's been 18th man now for a number of weeks. He was 18th man at Wembley, so for the cup final. It's about just giving him some game time.
Of course, he's gone to a Bradford, a club that he knows well and that knows him well. Does that make it almost a more beneficial loan when you're sending a player to a place where they know how he works and how he fits in?
Yeah, definitely. He knows Brian Noble well. He's obviously a sort of fan favourite, at Bradford in the past, and I know when he goes back, he enjoys going there, and obviously the players and staff enjoy having him. It does make it easier than going to a new club and having to build relationships and understand calls and systems and that type of thing. So, they understand Uribe, and he understands what they need from him as well.
Of course, he has shown this season, though, that he's more than capable of playing our Super League level. Did you have a decision to make over where to send him on loan?
Yeah, well, Nobby's reached out a number of times because exactly what you just said. There's a relationship there, and he's played there, and so it's when Uribe's come to me, like he enjoys playing at Bradford, regardless if it's in the Championship or not. But going back to what you said, he can play Super League, and we've said that about our squad. We want everyone being able to handle Super League, but more importantly, be able to play a certain way when they play for KR. So he's done that. He probably he was unlucky not to play in the final. The week before he played against St Helens, and he had a mixed night that night. He had a few errors and that type of thing. So it's only early on again in his career. He played Super League briefly. I know he's sort of that mid-20s, but he's got to go through all that again to get used to the speed and what Super League's about. But yeah, he's certainly played well, and he's done his part since when he's played with us. but we've got a good squad, and that's what we want. We want to have a good squad. We want to have a team that you need to fight hard to get in, and then once you're in, make sure you fight hard to stay in it. So that's what we want to try and create.
Of course, the big news this week, Bash getting included in Sean Wayne's England squad, his England camp. As a coach, how happy does that make you to see someone who's putting so much hard work over the last few years getting a bit of reward from it, from the national side?
Yeah, outstanding. I mean, I think he would have probably played last year if he didn't get injured. I know he's well thought of, by Sean Wayne, and he's a player that we value, and it's great to see that he's getting rewarded. So hopefully he can have a big back end of the season, a strong back end of the season, and fight his way into that 17.
Does Sean talk to the Super League coaches much, or is it very much a relationship with the players he's got?
No, Sean came around at the start of the year to all of us, and I caught up with Sean just after Christmas time. It was pre-season. Yeah, it was during pre-season.
Obviously, you will have a fair few boys in that squad. A bit disappointed not to be in that England setup. What has been your message to them?
Look, they just got to keep doing what they're doing. It's disappointing, of course, for those players that who aren't in. I believe in terms of the squad, not the 17, because you need to work your way into that 17. But in terms of the squad, I would like to think that we would have a few more numbers in as well. Certainly, and I'll comment on this because I saw, Sean's comments around Dean Hadley. Not sure whether he'd hack it or not. That's something I know Dean, would be able to do, regardless of who he's playing, whether it's against Australia, Samoa, Wigan, Huddersfield. He does it every week. Like, he's one of our first picked every week because he plays physical. His effort and the way he competes is as good as anyone, in the competition. And I know the Australians, if he did play against the Australians, I know Nathan Cleary, on last plays would be feeling the heat from Dean Hadley every time he's kicking the ball. And I know when, middles are getting tired in that middle for England, I know who'd be cleaning up. It'd be Dean Hadley, so I believe he would hack it. But I thought he would have been in the squad. I thought he's worked his way into being in that squad. I can't comment on the others because I'm not sure reasons of why. But obviously we would have liked a few more or a couple more.
Let's look towards Leeds then. Quite a contest they had against Lee on Friday night at the same time you were playing. What did you make of that match?
Leeds, yeah, they're a good team. They've worked their way up the ladder, and we knew what they were going to bring. When we played them the first time, and we know what they'll bring this Sunday as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a great game, great spectacle. For us and our fans, we value our fans so much. It's the 25th time that we've sold out our allocation at home, which is a remarkable achievement for the club, for what our staff have done. But more importantly, for the fans who turn up every week or every second week, whatever it is, paying their money and watching their team, we're really grateful.
I know I've spoke to you about a few clubs that have had coaching changeovers and the time needed for a coach to have an effect on a side. But for me, looking at Leeds, the time that Brad Arthur's managed to turn that team around and get them playing some really top-shelf rugby league has been quite quick. Have you been impressed by how quickly Brad Arthur's turned that Leeds side into a really dangerous force?
Oh, look, I'm not surprised. I know Brad Arthur, what he's done as a coach, back in Australia, and I knew what he'd bring. Look, I don't think they were too far off. I just think they probably valued certain areas that they value defence now, where in the past they probably valued the attack more. So it was just a matter of flipping that a little bit, which Brad's done. And just tidying up a few things. I don't think it was a major, going to be a major change in terms of, they've got some personnel there. They've got a good team, don't they? And personnel that can hurt you anywhere on the field. So I think it was just a matter of where's the focus going to be, and what do Leeds want to be known as. It's going to be more around their defence, which they've improved. And they showed last week they can score some points. So I'm not surprised, that Brad's obviously having some success with Leeds, and where Leeds sit on the ladder. As I said at the start of the year, it's a really tight comp, and that's what makes it a great competition. So it's no surprise.
And they've got this, when they are attacking, this very running, fluid style of play. How do you set yourself up to combat that?
Yeah, you just got to keep moving. You can't take a breath with these guys, because they do look like they're going one way. They'll find the ball, they'll come back the other side, and they play a good style. And as I said, they've got players that can hurt you at any stage. So we've got a system that we believe in, and we just need to make sure that we keep moving this week, because if you stop, then that's when they're going to hurt you.
Lovely. That's everything from me, mate. I'll pass you over to you. Good luck this week.
Thank you.
Hi, Willie. How you doing?
Good, Matt. How are you, mate?
Not bad, not bad. Just a couple from me. I know the whole breakfast thing's become a talking point, and the fans are even singing about it now. But on a more serious note, you're on track to become statistically the best ever defensive team in Super League. Is that something you spoke about internally or not? Because it would only take one bad defensive performance that could quickly turn around.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you write things and you see it, then it stands out to go, okay, well, this is where we're at. This is what we've got to get to. So, but for us, we value defence. We've always, since I've arrived, our number one focus is around our defence, and we've slowly progressed and got better, each year with that, and now putting ourselves in a strong position that we're a difficult team to score against, and that's what we want to be. So what we do is, we will review games and preview games the same way as what we normally do. We've got a training method that we do is a lot of it's based around defence. So nothing changes there. Naturally, when you've got something to chase, there's obviously league leaders. Of course, we're going after league leaders. When you see a stat around, chasing the best team or defensive team in the Super League history, you're going to chase that, of course. I'm not going to sit here and say we're not, but if we'll get there if we, we'll put ourselves in a position, should I say, if we stick to what we're doing and nothing changes, we're consistent with that. We're going to come up against teams. They're going to turn it on, on their day with an attack. We're playing against a team this week that can do that. So, it's not around that we need to keep teams to 8 points. We're going out to win a game of rugby league. So sometimes that might be 14 points scored against you. Sometimes you may get a 0. At the end of the year, it'll balance out. But we just want to make sure that we don't go away from our preparation and what that looks like. Because if we do that, then we'll put ourselves in a decent position to be able to stop tries and chase a stat like that.
If you read that one, you probably read the other stat about going a full calendar year, and the only team you've lost to is Wigan. It's 31 wins out of 34. It's a remarkable record. I'm just interested to know what you think about that particular record, because it's such a unique one, and there's two different talking points out of it, isn't there? There's the Wigan aspect, but also the fact that no one else has been able to beat you for a full year. What do you make of that one?
That one, to be honest, haven't sort of looked into too much. Look, I mean, everyone's going to be looking forward to the game when we play Wigan, but for us, the most important game is this Sunday. We're playing against a team that's third on the ladder, improving every week, and it's going to be a good challenge for us. So, yeah, to be honest, if I'm taking my pick out of both of what you said, we'll be certainly looking at the defensive stat, because we're in some control of that, and we pride ourselves in that, and we get our, most of the time, if you do let a team score once, twice maximum, then you're going to put yourself in a really strong position to win the game. So, yeah, that's probably the stat that we're going after, and then hopefully the result will take care of itself, and then you beat the team you're playing.
Just lastly for me, just what I was asking about the Rhyse Martin drama that has been this week. Obviously, he's got off with just one disciplinary point, got off the unnecessary contact. It seems to me that everyone's getting a little bit fed up at the minute with some of these charges. I just wondered what your thoughts were on particularly the Rhyse one, given is your player and how that's played out.
Yeah, I certainly think that needs to be looked at, that actual ruling. There was a black and white sort of ruling around if you touch a player, it's a grade E straight away. For me, that you need to needs to be graded. They need to look at so many different factors of what it is. You can't just say, well, I don't believe. You can say it's a grade E, and then you're looking at 6 weeks. You look at Liam Horn. I don't know where that's at now, but that is not a 6-week suspension for that. It's just not. We were fortunate that we got off with Rhyse, and yeah, like Rhyse got a grade A for the contact. So, I understand that. Then that's all part of a grading, but it doesn't make sense to go to a grade E. Players aren't deliberately going out to if they hurt someone, if someone's hurt, then to pull him up and show no sort of empathy or around a player that's injured. It's if they know and believe that someone is milking it in terms of staying down and what Wigan did. There's nothing wrong with that in terms of killing some time. But why should Liam Horn get suspended for 6 weeks? It just doesn't make any sense. And Wigan's doing the right thing, smart thing. In the game at the time, player wasn't injured, gets pulled up, and in our case as well, I'm glad that they saw what we saw. Yeah, there was some contact, so that needs to be looked at, and then have a look at what happened on the after that. But I think it was common sense needs to be in these moments, because you can't get a 6-week suspension for that. And I can understand Danny Maguire's frustration after the game, and then obviously during the week as a coach, you're losing one of your key players for 6 weeks. It just doesn't make sense.
It must be annoying for you as a coach. Rhyse has got off the charge, which is great, but I can only imagine that how Rhyse was feeling when he gets the charge through. He's had form of assault, he's just come back, then he's facing from the player's perspective, it must be quite taxing on them when they're having to go through things like this.
It's extremely taxing. I mean, Rhyse was not in a good place at all, and he just come off 4 months injury, which he couldn't control, and then if he'd done anything where I thought, no, mate, that's a 6-week suspension, or you've put yourself in that position, then I can understand. But he was down. There's no questioning that. Like afterwards, it was a massive relief. Afterwards, they need to look at how it affects players. Like they need to look at we talk about welfare and stuff like that. We talk about our product being the number one in terms of getting more viewers and having the best players on the field. We've always said it. Us coaches always say we're not here for foul play. We're not here if anyone does anything intentional, that needs to be dealt with and dealt with appropriately. But the two from the weekend to be grade E, one player gets 6 weeks, who's around him now in terms of welfare and all looking after. I know Cass would be. I'm just saying is there anyone from RFL and stuff, helping these players because they want to play. And that's what they want to do. And if it's illegal and if it's not in the spirit of the game, players deserve it, and coaches will come down on the players. They'll certainly come down on our players, and they've got to pay the fines and they've got to pay their time off and then try and fight to get back in the team. But when it's the two from the weekend, that's when we're going to have a look at it.
Cheers, Willie.
Thanks, mate.
Hi, Willie. It's Martin here.
Hey, Martin. How are you, mate?
Just a quick one from me, and thanks for your comments so far. I think I totally agree with everything you've said. Just on Leeds, though, would you say Leeds are probably the best attacking side in the comp at the moment? Because 48 points against Lee is pretty impressive when Lee are not a bad defensive side normally. I mean, you're conceding just over 8 points a game. That's going to be under challenge this Sunday.
Yeah, definitely. We know we're going to be challenged, and we need to be on, and we need to make sure that we're working extremely hard, mainly with our movements, and as I said before, not taking a breath. You need to keep going. You need to keep moving because they've got players that can hurt you. So, look, there's a lot of good attacking teams in the competition. To say they're number one, look, Wigan's up there, Warrington's up there, Leeds up there. Leeds have got a great attack, and they've got great attack. I think a lot of teams attack well. I think with Leeds, they're individuals, with Croft and Miller and guys like that, and then they've got Hanley. They're unpredictable because at times they're not sure what they're doing themselves, which is, it can be challenging for defensive lines when you've got players like that. Bevan French, like the way he plays, you can have a system and things in place, but sometimes you just got to find a way, and that's what we'll have to do this week. We've just got to keep finding ways.
Would you agree with me that they made one of the best mid-season signings in Callum Watkins, who I think's been outstanding for them since he's gone to Leeds? And I was slightly surprised. We talked about Dean Hadley a bit earlier not getting in the England squad, and it was me who actually asked that question of Sean on Tuesday at the counselling in Manchester. But I think Callum might also be a bit unlucky, actually, the way that he's been playing recently.
Yeah, he's a great player. He's been a great player for many years, and I think the strength of Callum is that you can play in a number of positions. Look, with my comments around Dean, I think when Sean's picking a team, obviously he'll be looking at certain things, and I think if, as I said before with Dean, if it's in terms of size or in terms of explosive, if you want someone more explosive or impact, or that's probably not Dean. But Dean's a worker. Dean's is a grafter, and then you look at Callum. Callum's got his game's different to Dean, so he's he can change a game. He's got offload. He's got feet. He's got a pass in him. So it all depends on what Sean's looking for. I think Callum's, he's obviously been there, and there's no doubt he's capable of being that squad. And I suppose just going back to our team and my play in terms of Dean, I just thought Dean would be suitable in that squad because he'd put a lot of pressure on others to make sure they're at their best, because he's at his best every week, and other players love playing with him.